y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Life with Lachey. Today I'm going to be talking about my journey to getting into a PhD program with a low undergraduate GPA. I was inspired a few years back on Twitter when I saw academics saying, hey, I got a PhD and I had, a negative 1.56 GPA. So I was hoping that I would get in and then I'd be able to, share a success story about how I ended up getting in. So for undergrad, I ended up going to the University of Georgia, and I always knew that I wanted to be either a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I am a first generation college graduate, so at the time I just knew that I had to get a terminal degree if I was going into psychology. And so in my mind, I thought if I have to go to school for a bunch of extra years, I'm going to go to the school that ends up giving me the biggest return on investment. I'm going to go to the school that pays the most. I'm going to be a medical doctor. I went in with pre-med intent, with psychology being my major, and I did just fine in all my psychology classes and some of the pre-med classes, but some of them complete trash. There was a point where I started taking crossover classes, so classes like neurobiology, cognitive neuroscience, those types of classes I loved. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. We didn't have like a neuroscience major or anything like that, so I ended up adding biology as a second major. I came in with pretty much all of my friends being pre-med, and then just one by one they were dropping like flies. So I felt like I was doing good because I was still hanging in there, even though my grades were atrocious on the biology side of things. I just kept going. Between my third and fourth year, I interned at a hospital and talked with some doctors, got some actual field experience, and realized I do not want to be a psychiatrist. This is not at all what I want to do. So I started to try to learn about grad school. What does PhD look like? And I had a professor that I talked to, but it really was very hazy. I really didn't understand what you did in grad school, what it looked like, how you get in. I ended up graduating and sort of having to figure out my own way. So I did graduate with both degrees in 4 years, but the GPA was trash. I ended up coming out of graduate school with an overall GPA of 2.76, I think. All of my psych grades, never got less than a B in psych, all A's and B's in psych, but biology was all over the board. So I had A's, B's, C's, D's, F's. So when I came out of undergrad, I started interning at a private psychological practice in Atlanta that did a lot of assessments. And I started off as an intern and sort of worked my way up to become a psychometrist. All interns were sort of matched to a postdoc. So my postdoc, Anna, who's amazing, and is now a fully licensed psychologist, she sort of guided me and, told me how to get to my goals, how to get to a PhD. And then at a certain point, there was an opening in a research lab in Atlanta that was looking for clinicians to do, to administer psychological tests. And the job posting at the time also was looking specifically for doctoral students. And at this point, I was just a postback. But I applied anyway, and I ended up getting that job. And so the person who ran that lab is actually my current PhD advisor / mentor / PI. And so she's actually mentored me for many, many years. And I was fortunate to meet her at that point in my journey, because essentially what she did for me was she sort of demystified the process and told me what I needed to do to get into school. So I worked in her lab, and I basically got research experience doing, I was administering psychological assessments. And she at the time was not in stage. She came back once or twice a year, and she set meetings with all of the people in her lab to go over professional development, what our long-term goals were. So when she came to town and I met with her, I told her, that I wanted to get into a PhD program. My undergrad grades were trash. And I just didn't know what to do. So, she told me, well, first thing, you really need research. You need research experience. And so she invited me to come on in my spare time as a research assistant in her lab, which I did. And so I spent some of my time, doing my first job there, and then some of my time doing research assistant work, just learning about research, working on posters, going to conferences, really just building up my resume and getting experience and getting a feel for research and determining, is this what I want to do? Lucky for me, I was like, yes, I love it. This is great. And so from there, as I got more experience, she talked to me about, what admissions committees are really looking for. 2 years before I actually applied. I felt like I was ready to apply, and she was like, girl, no. She didn't say it like that, but basically she was like, girl, no, you gotta spend all your money and not get in. So she said it very nicely, but essentially what she told me is that, you know, you want to keep getting more research experience. And while she personally didn't feel like master's degrees were particularly helpful in getting in my specific case, my undergrad grades were just not going to cut it. And so I had to prove that I was academically competent, even though I knew I was. I had to prove that to someone else. So I actually went back and got my master's degree in clinical psychology. I did a terminal master's program that had the option to do licensure, but I actually don't want to be a therapist, so I didn't do that. I left. You could do 2 or 3 years, and I left after 2 years because I got into school. So I went and did my master's program down in Miami. And while I was doing my master's program, it actually allowed you to work full time. So I knew, because the program that I went to didn't have faculty who were doing research in my area of interest, I knew that I needed to continue to get research experience in that particular area. And so there's a really big university in Miami, and I was like, I have to work there. Miami was also expensive, and I couldn't afford to live there if I didn't work. So I took out loans for my master's degree, but I couldn't take out loans to live, so I got a day job. I was very fortunate. I applied to every position there was at the university in research, and I actually ended up getting one in my field, so it was just like the stars just all aligned. So I started working there as a research coordinator in a lab, and I worked there for 2 years. So essentially I worked from like 9 to 5 every day, and then I would drive an hour to school and go to class from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and then go home, do research, go to bed, and do it all over again. So worked full-time, did my master's full-time for 2 years. And then during that second year, at the beginning of that second year, I was like, I'm ready to apply now. I feel good about it. I'm ready to apply. My GRE scores were always solid. I'm pretty good at test taking. They weren't like, you know, blow you out of the water amazing, but they were always solid. I took it again just to bring my scores up a couple of more points when I got ready to apply. And so my scores were solid. I had a 4.0 GPA for my master's program, and, you know, I had research experience, and I was also a research coordinator at that time. So I felt pretty good, but I also, you know, was on Google trying to figure out who gets into school with a low GPA, and it just wasn't looking great. You know, people were like, you'll never get in, like, you're doomed. And so, you know, I just felt really down about it, to be honest. But I talked to my mentor about it, and I had decided that I was going to apply to 12, I think, you know, the range they give you is 12 to 15 schools in clinical psychology, which is like a sweet spot to apply to for a full application cycle. So it's very expensive. So I did 12. So I was also planning a wedding at the same time. And I was like, listen, I need to conserve money. So I applied to 12 schools. Originally, I was planning to apply to 11 PhD programs and 1 PsyD program. I didn't want to get the PsyD, and that's just a matter of personal preference, because I wanted a research degree. I enjoy doing research, but PhDs are also, pretty much all of them in my field are fully funded, and I think that 1 PsyD I was planning to apply to was fully funded as well. But I didn't actually want to do a PsyD. You know, my mentor sort of was able to help me keep things in focus and say, like, basically believe in yourself, which is sometimes all you need, is just somebody to tell you to believe in yourself. And I also had a great mentor at my job as well, who sort of taught me through everything and was gracious and taught me lots of things and wrote me letters and, you know, just spoke life into me. So I was really fortunate to get some really good mentors along the way, which is really key. Because they sit on these boards and they can tell you what is being looked for, what's happening in these rooms, and they can also write you letters to vouch for you, and those letters go a long way. It does help to have someone vouch for you, to say, listen, this is where this person was years ago and this is where they are now. This is 2 different things, not representative of who they are. I will say though, that's only one piece of the puzzle. So if you are somebody that has a low undergraduate GPA and you decide, like, I'm just gonna go in and apply, if they go to these people that you're applying to and say, look at this person, you know, they sparkle, they shine, they glitter, you need to have some things on your end to back it up and say, listen, what glitters is gold. I'm here and I'm here to do the thing, and I'm the girl you want, or I'm the guy you want, or I'm the person you want. So, you know, I did my part. I tried, you know, to make sure I went in with my master's degree, even with working full time and barely sleeping, you know, I made sure I got a 4.0 so I could prove, even though it's a silly thing to have to prove, like, you know, I made my best. So I wanted to make sure I could prove, like, what she's saying about me is true. What he's saying about me is true. You should take me. And so out of those, I think 11 or 12 schools I ultimately ended up applying to, I got interviews from 4 of them. The schools that I got interviews from were all schools that had research fits. So some schools I applied to because I was like, I like the program, I like the school, I like the city. They weren't necessarily the best research fits. They were kind of like stretches. I was like, well, I have experience in this area that's transferable. But the schools, every school that was in my research area that truly was a fit, I got an interview from. And so out of those 4 interviews, I got all 4 acceptances. And so I was able to choose pretty early, like back to back, right after I came off of interviews, where I wanted to go. And I was just amazed. I was shocked, to be honest. I went in saying, like, I just need one. All I need is one to prove to them that, you know, I could be their dream student. I could be everything that I set out to be. But I got 4. So, you know, 4 is better than 1, and I was real glad about it. I cried a lot. I feel like I cried for months about it. Just tears of joy. So I think the key things there are, A, good mentorship. Nobody tells you this. There's pretty much like a hidden curriculum when you're applying to school, especially if you're a first generation student. You don't really know how it goes. You don't have anybody to tell you how it goes. Good mentorship. And there's multiple ways you can get that, but if you're going for a PhD, the easiest way to go about it is to apply to a lab that you really want to work in. They do research that you're interested in. They're going to have some type of faculty member there that can speak to, you know, how they got to where they were. Now, you know, all mentors are not created equally. Some people are better than others, and I will say that I was very fortunate to have really great people in my corner. But you know, you can always apply to multiple labs. You know, if the first one, you work really hard in the first one and you figure out this isn't really what I want to do, or I'm looking for more mentorship, you can always reach out to additional people, even if you stay at the same place. People are willing to help, I think, by and large. Not everybody, but many people are. So seek out mentorship, because nobody gets anywhere alone. It doesn't matter if you had a 4.0 GPA in undergrad, nobody gets anywhere alone. Everybody needs help. You can do it. Just keep going. Where there's a will, there's a way. And with all things in life, if it's something that you really want and there's roadblocks, or, you know, the signs say maybe the odds are stacked against you, you shouldn't apply for this, you shouldn't do it, you just have to be relentless about it. Like, there's nothing that can stop you from getting what's meant for you. And I will say, even, you know, they don't tell you this, but the schools, they have processes to get around things like low GRE scores or low GPAs. They don't tell you that because they want, you know, they want the best of the best. But you might be the best of the best. There are people that I know from undergrad with 4.0s who would not do well in a PhD program. There are people I know with low undergraduate GPAs who also would not do well. You know, so you have to look at people holistically. If you have a low undergraduate GPA, make sure that you have high GRE scores and really good research experience. I think this gets a little tricky right now because there's a really big push to get rid of GRE scores, and, you know, rightfully so, because it costs a lot of money. It's another barrier. But some of those same things could be said for undergraduate GPAs. And if GRE scores are done away with, then there's really going to be a bigger push and this video might be obsolete. Like, you need to have really good grades. But for now, since, you know, some schools are still allowing you to submit it or making it optional, make sure that your other areas of the application are really strong. Just make sure that if you are coming in with a really, really weak point, that your other areas are on point. So they only just have questions about that one area. Just make sure you know, do everything to help them help you, okay? If you want them to look at you holistically, make sure the other pieces of the pie look really good. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Don't let anything get in the way of achieving what you want to achieve, and just stay the course. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if there's other things about the process that you would like me to talk about. I'm happy to do that in another video. All right, bye.